What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV. I'm joined today by my good friend, Gary Jackson Moorhead. How you doing, Gary?
I am good, Aaron. Just enjoying one of my days off in between a busy work schedule.
Awesome. Welcome to the team of people who use these Shure mics and have amazing video quality.
And I just, by the way, I saw in the somebody, hello from Serbia. Is that like Serbia in Russia or somewhere? Holy smokes, Aaron.
Well, Serbia is a country.
Sure. Yeah. Well, like you, I grew up in a cult. I'm like, what the hell?
Just want to remind everybody that they can go and subscribe to Jackson.
Look at that.
Over at Gary Jackson Moorhead. Given name is Gary. Adopted name is Jackson. Remind me, is Jackson your middle name?
Nope. Jackson is an AKA that came as my security chief handle or security handle at the Ant base.
Right. I remember now. And there's a joke behind that, but we don't have to. There's a story behind that, but we don't have to tell it right now.
No.
All right, guys. Well, we're here to talk about some very serious business, and that is my ongoing fascination with child star from the Never-Ending Story, Barrett Oliver.
Yeah.
Who, despite that being one of my favorite movies, and this guy was a Scientologist my entire life practically, and I never knew about it, and that's why I can't seem to let it go. So I did a chat yesterday about Barrett, and in that video, I sort of requested for any Scientologists out there who I was like, if this guy was in Scientology from a young age, there's going to be people who went to school with him. There's going to be, there's going to be some girlfriend that he had or something. And I heard from several people in the second generation community who went to school with him. He went to the Apple School in Los Angeles, and then you contacted me.
And I was screaming at the screen. I was like, Aaron, oh my God, I got.
That's right.
I could have spent $100 on super chats just to try to help fill you in as you're talking to Mitch.
Were you commenting in the chat?
I was trying to, but it was because when I catch it beyond it's a live thing, I go back 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm always 2 or 3 minutes back, and I'm like, what have I done to myself? I can't let Aaron know.
That's so funny. Now, there's a bunch of stuff that you had to say. So for those who may not know, most of your time at the international base was spent as the security chief for the base.
Correct.
And you said you had to recover Barrett at least 2 times more like 3 times in his attempts to escape or successful attempts escaping from the base.
Correct.
And that's a little alarming that this well-known actor is, one of these Sea Org members at the international base, and he doesn't want to be there and tried to escape and had to be brought back multiple times. What were you already at the base when Barrett came up there the first time? Yeah.
Barrett was brought to the base under the direction of Dave Miscavige himself, is a solution to the problems that were being had in the talent department of the Cine division of Golden Era, the ones that produced all the tech films. And Dave was on this path of putting trained professionals in key positions, such as Mitch, as everyone now has come to know, was the director. Well, that was directly done to Dave because Dave had already been through a series of failed attempts by using in-house staff to become the director. And so in the talent world, Barrett was in Los Angeles at CC, and I don't know if he was on staff or not. He had to have been in the Sea Org at some point previously coming to the base, but that's where he came from and was brought up to the base as initially the talent chief's page. So he was called the talent page. That's the job that he fulfilled when he first arrived to the property.
It sounds like such a low position to me. I'm having trouble understanding what problem David Miscavige thought he was solving by putting Barrett on that post.
Well, in the filmmaking industry world, each position, the chief gaffer, the makeup artist, the costumes IC, they all have their special talents and capabilities. And in the talent world, Dave wanted somebody who built connections and communication lines to the industry outside of the base. So we no longer were using most, if not all, base staff as the talent in the tech films.
Okay.
So Barrett was that initial connection because he was an actor and he knew the industry and He was Dave's solution, and his mom was already involved with Scientology down in Los Angeles. And I don't know the details, but Dave was the driving force of getting Barrett to the property.
So, one detail that was shared with me yesterday by someone who knew him before he joined the Sea Org answers the question of like what was his Sea Org experience before going to INT?
Yeah,
and I'm going to fill in the gap here. I'm reading from my notes. I'm selectively choosing the information so as not to reveal the identity of the person who messaged me.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. That's cool.
So it says he was recruited by Celebrity Center International, or at least that's where he was recruited to be. That's where he was told he was going to go when he joined the Sea Org. Shortly after he finished the EPF, which is the Estates Project Force, which is the Sea Org boot camp, essentially, he was told that he was going to Golden Air Productions, and he was put onto the clearance lines to get approved to go up there. He did not need a Sea Org production record because he was a pro, and his acting history was considered his production record.
Correct.
And at the time, professionals could go straight up to Golden Air Productions.
And just as a side note on that, Aaron, it was kind of that shortened process of arriving to the INT base was kind of an insult to us that are already at the base, because it took us hard-earned effort and merits to get where we were, and he got the easy route, or he just being an example of one of the ones that got an easy route to the base. So, other
than Barrett and other than Mitch, were there a bunch of other examples of just pros being allowed to?
Peter Schless would be another one. He kind of arrived to the base as Barrett did, mostly in Peter having a more expanded musical background and connection in the musical world. That's how Peter Schless arrived at the base, similar as Barrett did.
Interesting.
Yeah. And with Peter came his wife, Karen Schless, Karen Schless. She wrote a book. You probably heard her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few more details here. You've said, I can't remember if it's just privately or if you've already said it here, he didn't really want to be at INT, and part of the explanation for that is that's not why he joined the Sea Org. He did not join the Sea Org to go to Golden Air Productions.
No.
He very much wanted to work at the Celebrity Center International. And I'm just reading some things here. He was not excited about going to Golden Air Productions. He thought it would be at CC, but he was just going with the flow. He definitely didn't want to act in any way, shape, or form, which I just find really interesting.
And that I come to know also, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's probably all the details I'll share from that particular message. So tell me about him escaping from the base. What happened there?
Well, he probably was on his assigned task as the talent page for maybe the better part of a year, and then Monica, his boss, who was the talent, Monica being the talent chief at the time, she ended up leaving with Jesse, and that was Jesse Prince's wife on property. Just for those, the listening world probably heard a little bit about this, but Jesse and Monica blew, and then that prompted naturally Barrett to take over the whole talent division, and that burdened him with, I guess what I'm trying to say is, as a talent page, you could just sit back and watch and do the stuff that was barked at you to go do as a page, and yet you didn't have to be responsible for anything and everything talent. So now that Monica's gone, Barrett had all of the talent needs placed squarely on his shoulders. So that threw him into a different demeanor. On top of him not already wanting to be there, now he certainly did not want to be there, but he tried to soldier on. And you could see in his physical, as Mitch was explaining yesterday, he was a very loner type, very quiet guy, kind of schlepped along per se, and just his demeanor was very quiet. So nonetheless, he tried to do the job the best he could, and he just got to a breaking point, and next thing you know, he's gone one day. And I can't say how long he was on as the talent chief, but it wasn't that long, maybe 6 to 8 months. He tried to endure it, and then next thing you know, here's Barrett becoming basically an ethics particle for me, a security threat, because now here's this unaccounted for, not only just an INT-based staff member, but an unaccounted for Dave Miscavige golden child person to be in the talent. So because of that connection, there was urgency applied to getting Barrett back. So he was missing one day. The only thing I can remember right at this time was my first time finding him at his mother's house up in Sunland, Tahunga area. And it was at night. And, there was a mixed in, I had to find Barrett, but to me it was also a road adventure. So you kind of remember, gosh, being up in this canyon, this nice area. Oh yeah, I'm here to find somebody. Oh wow, look at that squirrel. Oh yeah, I'm here to find somebody. So you remember those kind of moments, what it was like, and then having to knock on the door and coax him and convince him to come back. So
that I've always wondered how awkward that is for a Scientologist parent who has a kid in the Sea Org when the kid goes AWOL and goes to the parent. Like, it puts them in such an awkward position as a parent wanting to protect your child, but then as a Scientologist knowing you have to protect the Sea organization. What an awkward thing. Do you remember what it was like showing up to the house and having to be like, I'm here to retrieve your son?
Well, that was basically it. For me, myself, I never approached it like, I'm the Sea Org, I represent the Imp base, give me your child back. I'm here to take him back no matter what you say. It wasn't that approach from me, but there was an unspoken, atmosphere that the parent and the people knew that I was representing the almighty international headquarters in Church of Scientology International, and we're here, we mean business. But I would just like, hey, Barrett, good to see you, buddy. Why I'm here. Let's get down to brass tacks, and what do you have to say? And just make that initial contact. And of course, I'm arriving with, once we found out where he's at, we get the case supervisor direction as to how to approach this. We figure out who his opinion leader is. He didn't even really have one at the base, so there was no one for me to bring along and go, hey, so many people miss you. Here's Dave or Steve, your best friend back at the base. He's concerned about you, so he wanted to come along, and we brought him.
Is that what you did? Someone else came with you?
Well, at times with various people that left, we would bring them along, and that's what we would tell them. It's like, God, they were so upset that you left. They wanted to come along to help find out what's going on. No, we purposely brought him along because we knew he'd be an influence over you, and we would work on your emotions through your quote-unquote best friend and get you back. But Barrett didn't have any of those, so it was just, luck of the draw, luck of the straw of hitting the right buttons to hit him with. How's it going? What happened? Did you stub your toe, or did somebody piss you off, or what? Just kind of fishing around for his button of his ruin.
Did it just come down to the fact he just did not want to be there?
He did not want to be there. That's he didn't. Right out of his mouth. I didn't want to be there when I went there. So, yeah, and not knowing the backstory to it is like I didn't know how to deal with that necessarily. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't know what necessarily to say, but I'm motivated by going, I better figure it out fast, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble for Barrett successfully turning me around at his door, and I got to go back to the base without Barrett. So
that's interesting.
That's the game at hand. And every time you make contact with somebody and recover them, the motivation is you're only going to make the situation better by having that person in hand. If you don't, you're going to get not only are they going to be upset, they being those back at the base, you're going to get in trouble yourself. So,
yeah. Even before I knew anything about this story, some of the information I got from this one of these other sources said said Barrett was quiet and down to earth, but he was a straight shooter. He said exactly what he thought and how he felt about things. His integrity was strong. I was always amazed that he did not seem to fear getting in trouble like the rest of us did. He would just say, I'm not going to do that, or that isn't right. But he was always very calm but firm about it. And so for him to be like, I didn't want to be there when I got there.
That's right. And that couldn't have been described more better about Barrett. That's truly the way he was. So,
wow. Okay. So then after, it sounds like maybe 2 years of him suffering through being at Golden Era Productions, it sounds like there was a point when he said, I want to leave. I'm going to leave. And they put him on what they would call route out lines.
Right.
How did that come about? What did he do?
There were 2 rounds of it. So from his initial time he took off, he was out at the old Gilman house, which was on, the original hole, if you want to give a definition to something, but the place in which we placed everybody to segregate from the general crew and population of the property.
Do you mind if I jump? Because I think people who've maybe been watching a bunch of videos know it more as we have discussed on this channel a lot about the place where the children of the Sea Org members were kept. And it was called Happy Valley. Did it have another word? The ranch, the Int Ranch, Happy Valley?
Happy Valley is what I always knew it as and always referred to it as. Never as the Int Ranch or the Kids Ranch. It was just always Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. And this was a plot of a property completely surrounded by an Indian reservation, right? Like it's located in the middle of an Indian reservation.
Not in the middle. It was nestled at the foothill of Mount San Jacinto, but you traveled through an Indian reservation as its only point of access to get to Happy Valley. And to get out of it, you had to go through the Indian reservation. So you couldn't even take a back road to get around the Indian reservation. There was only one way in, one way out, and that was through the Saboba Indian reservation. And
so on this property was a building called the Old Gilman House.
Nope. That's where I was going to jump in here and correct you. The first time Barrett left, he was placed out at the Old Gilman House, which was still at the main compound at Gilman Hot Springs. And OGH, or the Old Gilman House, was where the Gilmans, which is where the Gilman...
For the purpose of this video, if you're losing me, you're going to lose the audience. Let's not try to describe geographical locations.
I didn't realize I was losing you. Sorry, buddy. Come back, Aaron.
I got you. I know what you're talking about. No one else does.
All right. So he wasn't set up at a Happy Valley. He was placed out at the Old Gilman House and put on a watch and went through a technical program afforded him by the case supervisor and the ethics department. He got his sec checking. The whole process probably took a couple of months, and then he was returned back to his job of talent. Whatever we did to fix him and whatever he resolved to agree to stay, that happened once. And he tried to give another earnest effort at it. And the next time he took off, I can't off the top right now remember where and what he did to leave, but we found ourselves having to find Barrett again. And, I almost want to cast in the doubt that he just stood his ground and said, F you, I'm not doing this anymore. I want to leave. And we just shipped him out to Happy Valley. That may have been more of the case, to be honest with you, now that I'm thinking about it. So that didn't say that we didn't find him wandering around town on his own because he just wanted to. Because he, again, he was in an environment he didn't know where to go. He didn't want to go upset his mom and reach out to his mom, help get me out of here. You're just a solid individual thrown in the middle of Death Valley. Which way do I run? Type of mental scenario. So.
Did he have a car or something? How was he getting off the base?
I don't know if he arrived with one. He may have had a motorcycle or a car. Oh. I almost want to lean to the fact that he had a motorcycle because he kind of had that cool dude thing about him. And I think he had an open face, head helmet, if I remember right. Some of them have a chin. Some of them just have the open face. I think he may have had something like that. But he had a means. And like I said, he was a straight shooter, and it's like, F you, I don't want to be here anymore. And he just took a stand and put an end to the forward progress of him trying to continue to be an INT-based staff member.
Did you tell me that the most recent time, or the final time that he definitely said, I'm leaving, that they had him on that process for a year? Is that what you said?
Yeah, at least a year. Well before I actually left. Even up to the last day that I was on post as a security chief, he was still one of my quote unquote threat particles that was out at Happy Valley undergoing his daily sec checking and going through the process of actually routing out of the Sea Org. Very slow.
He was a true believer. I mean, here's why I say that. Do you think that he was?
I don't think he was a true believer of Scientology. I think he was a true believer to his word, in that he arrived there with an agreement and he established agreement that I'm leaving, and had no intention of being an a-hole and making it a problem, but just let me leave. But it was, he knew he was up against a battle. He didn't know what the battle was going to be, but he knew he was up in a battle to get that okay, to actually go, okay, buddy, there's the door, see ya. He wanted to get to that day as quick as he could. He just didn't know when that day was going to come. So he just did as told, went and did his mess work, his physical labor, went out to Happy Valley. I signed him out there because that was just completely, because it was kind of like now he's transitioned into this time I'm firmly leaving. So he would be clearly out of the way of any base staff member. And that's why we sent him out to Happy Valley. And I assigned him to my guard out there that I had full time to keep an eye on him, and gave him daily tasks. And an auditor went out there to check him and audit him. And the knowledge reports would get written up and those would get addressed. And he was just plugging through. But he was also kind of going out of his mind at the time. The dude, it's such a challenge for any individual wanting to leave. And Barrett, being the individual he was a little bit more hard-headed, but he also had his own personal interests that he just started voicing. And in the church's eyes, they were considered other practices, but they were just interests of Barrett that, somebody had mentioned him wearing Doc Martens and bands. He just had this different culture that he was interested in, I guess for lack of better terms, but he liked wearing black. And if he could, he probably would have had makeup on his face. I don't know. It was just different to us.
How did you describe it to me before? Magic?
Yeah. That actually came out of his mouth, where he was interested in black and white magic, which to this day I can't even define as what it is, but that's where his interest lied. And it was like, wow, in Scientology, and especially the base world, that was an extreme, what do they call it? Other practice idea, so it was even so far away, a step away from Scientology. It was like, wow, there's something really wrong with this guy, which is our side, the group side view of, we need to figure out what's wrong with Barrett. And now he's expressing his interest in black and white magic. And I'm talking so much so that I know he was aware of what is that? Branding. Mm-hmm. Not in a major way, but just little brands. He may have even done, I don't want to speak out of place so much, but I just these little things pop in my mind of he had interest in tattoos, and it was such a conflict of the norm of life. Like an in-base staff member would never get a tattoo. They may arrive at the base, but I never grew up there. I never even knew what tattoos were until people like Barrett showed up on my radar.
I have to assume that was really weirding people out at the base, like kind of a red flag.
Well, yeah, and then on top of it, how did this guy get clearance to get here if this is what he's really all about? So it was those kind of conflicts always at play all the time. So, the sad thing is how basically Barrett was just beat down as an individual, either by the group's response towards his personal verbalized, expressed individualism, how he wants to be and what he wants to do as a person. And we took it as being weird. Mm-hmm. And choking him off from being able to explore that, it just, it was an interesting experience for me because, I can see an individual here wanting to be an individual, and the loneliness that he was feeling. And it's like running across a homeless camp, a homeless guy sitting in the middle of a field, finding interest in a cardboard box. And, that's what kind of Barrett was reduced to, I'm just giving that example as a mindset of what I felt I was looking at in Barrett at the time, what we had reduced him to. This very lonely, obviously now lost, what do I do? But still pushing through to be there. I'll leave when you say it's okay. But in the meantime, he wanted to be himself. And it was just, you can see how lonely it was. It was actually kind of disturbing, I got to say. But I couldn't speak up. I couldn't act in his defense. I don't know. That's just what it eventually came down to in his last days at the base. Interesting. How he ended up leaving. He left shortly after I did. That I do know. I left in the summer, late spring, early summer of '97, and Barrett was still there trying to rat out. And
really,
unfortunately, Barrett and I also, Barrett and I had this unfortunate life event occur between us that actually was very personal. That at the time, how do I explain this? Barrett had found, because while Barrett was out there, my wife and I at the time had voiced our interest in leaving. My wife and I were forcibly separated. I was kept at the main base at a Gilman Hot Springs, and my wife was set up out where Barrett was now at a Happy Valley. But my wife had her own handler, and she was set up at the Happy Valley property. There's this building or this house called the Campbell House, and it was probably a good half mile from the main Happy Valley compound. So it was in its own self isolated. So that's where my wife was set up. Eventually, because now Barrett and her were on mutual ground, they became they came to work with each other, doing projects, working in the garden and stuff. And then how do I say this? Barrett basically took advantage of a very beautiful, precious woman's loneliness and situation, and he swiped in to try to basically seduce my wife. And yeah, that's a whole. So this is how Barrett and I came to know each other in a different way.
He was never married in the Sea Org, right?
No. Oh, I know he was to this girl, Sandy Woodruff, I think her name was, this little cute Australian gal, really bubbly. But yeah, we came to know her. I mean, obviously Sandy Oliver. Yeah, and yeah, he did marry Sandy Woodruff.
Huh.
Yeah. That's
Woodruff
a good point. I totally forgot about that.
The Woodruff family is an important family in Scientology. Was she a member of that family? Shane Woodruff, Todd Woodruff, John Woodruff?
No. John Woodruff, I think he wasn't Australian. He may have. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I don't think it was the same John Woodruff tied with the Orange County org, if that's what you're talking about, or LA org.
There's a bunch of Woodruffs.
Okay. Well, all I can tell you is he married one of our HEO Hubbard Communication Officer staff named Sandy, and she was a bubbly Australian gal, and yeah, they were like seemingly perfect for each other.
So, I mean, you told me a story that kind of highlights the quirkiness, we'll call it, of Barrett. I believe it's the last instance of Barrett trying to make an escape, except this time it was with your wife. How did that go down?
Well, like Barrett, when my wife and I chose to leave, I made it very clear to the organization, and particularly RTC, that I will leave when you say it's okay to leave, just to prove to you that I'm not who you're saying I am, which is a suppressive person. So over the course of the entire 365 days it took me to leave, I was always trying to make arrangements to see my wife, and becoming more and more of an a-hole about it, even so much so as swinging an axe to keep people away from me, and using the axe to break through locks on the gate to get out, to start the journey of physically walking out to my wife was. So very crazy time for me. The whole time being reassured that not only is my wife doing good, but she's getting the letters that I'm writing her, my only means of communication to her, well aware of the fact that I can't be 100% honest in my written letters, and knew that my letters are going through others reading them. So to see if they can pick out any code or secret message that I was trying to get to my wife, which is the sole purpose of my letters being read. But one day I'm sitting out at the old Gilman house, and my good buddy now, and my good buddy then, JB, who was my handler in Religious Technology Center at the time, he comes up to me, says, "Hey Jackson, I need to see you." And this was probably closer to the end of my actual leaving, where it was clear to me that the group is now letting me go, and we're just going through the final steps before you finally walk out the door. So part of that state in which people would arrive at, the group would always throw tests at the individual to make sure that they weren't faking their way up to this point. So I felt what JB was now going to deliver to me was a test. So he sat me down and he goes, "I got some news to tell you." I said, "Okay, JB." And he goes, "Yeah, Barrett Oliver handcuffed himself to your wife, and they were going to run down the road and eloped with each other." I was like, "What did you just say?" And he had to slow down, and he goes, "Yeah, Barrett ran up, handcuffed himself to your wife, and they went running down through Happy Valley, out Happy Valley, down through into the Indian reservation. And I go, why the fuck did they do that? And because they were eloping. And this is where, go ahead.
Well, does anyone go, where did Barrett Oliver get a pair of handcuffs?
Well, I wondered the same. I mean, I was one of the questions I probably kicked out. Where the fuck did he get handcuffs from, JB? So, nonetheless, whether that actually happened or not, that's what I was told. And I was batshit. What? Now, this was a really changing moment for me as a person, because up to this point, during my months and months and months of planning to leave, I was studying about the outside world. I get the LA Times Sunday edition, which was the more complete, source of information at the time, newspaper that offered all the job listings available and what in rents and stuff that I could use to study the outside world and what the cost of living was. So I was pretty intense, mentally well involved in preparing myself for the outside world, including affording my wife either her choice of following her career path or being a stay-at-home mom, because we wanted to build a family. So I was really, really set on where my life was now going and getting prepared for it to the best of my ability. And then all the while thinking my wife and I are just madly in love, and there was nothing between us, nothing between us. And I kept getting told by my handlers that my wife is doing good. She's still in love with you. Yes, she got your letters, yada, yada, yada. She's doing really good. And then, motherfucker, I get landed with this.
Do you think they were just lying to you the whole time?
Absolutely, they were lying to me. I was told that it started 2 months into my year-long handling. So, given a 7-day time frame as an example, 6.5 of those days, RTC and Miscavige and everybody was well aware of the fact that Barrett and my wife were committed to each other.
Wow.
And my wife's ability was brought about because of the shit they were filling in her head that I'm not the person that she thought she married. But we can never talk. So she, being this precious little beautiful soul in this very wicked situation, easily bought into, you're only led to believe your church. So anybody's going to believe the church and what your counselor is telling you as truth, never getting the chance to talk to me and kind of verifying it. So over those months of filling her head of the type of person that I am, I'm not what you married, in the whole thing, her idea of our marriage was over. But yet this entire month, the church kept telling me that my wife's madly in love with me, yada, yada, yada. So I was of the mental state that I was doing the right thing as her man, her husband, the love of her life, navigating this treacherous world, this treacherous environment that she has no knowledge about and I know everything about, and getting herself set up to live and begin the best life that we can. So now JB sits down in front of me and tells me my wife had been handcuffed by another man and run down the road and they were eloping. I was like, what the fuck?
Unbelievable.
Aaron, I literally was up 5 days and 5 nights. I would go through a carton of Camel non-filters every 2 days. I was out of my mind. It was the weirdest time for me as an individual. And, how I arrived at that was based off of what I was told. I don't know the in-depth history of Sherry there it went. Anyways, my wife and Barrett's involvement, what have they been doing over these months? All I'm told about is this one little grain of salt. And this grain of salt forces me to look at this huge pile of salt of history between Barrett and my wife.
Now, to be fair, just to jump in, so you were told that this thing happened. We'll assume that it did happen, but it's not like they left together, right?
Well, at that time, I'm told that he handcuffed himself and they went running down the road. And yeah, they confirmed it with me later. Oh, no, they didn't leave staff together. No. And I'll tell you, because I erased that seed out of Barrett's mind, and I'll tell you a little bit how that came about.
What'd you do?
Well, it that very same day when it finally hit me, I told JB, I said, JB, you have a dead man on your hands. And he's like, what, Jackson? I said, yes. If he was here right now, he would be a dead man, and I would feel totally fine with it. I was so disturbingly upset by this being tossed at me and force-fed down my throat, into my head, into my soul, that I just lost everything. Absolutely everything. So, like I said, I stayed up 5 days and 5 nights. I could not sleep. I could not do anything. I just paced around. I was fucking wacky tobacco, boy, I'll tell you. But one thing that and that really, when I said those words, that really perked the ears up of the church. Suddenly, there's Greg Will here, Marty Rathbun, Mike Sutter, JB sitting in front of me. Jackson, no. And I'm going, yeah. And I pointed my finger at each individual and I said, fuck you. And I said, tell Dave, fuck you. Because I said, this has anything to do with me and the church. This is between me and you men as men, that you consciously knew that a man's wife was being seduced by another man. And as a church on top of it, you let it happen and happily sat back. And then also fed me the belief that she was still in love with me. It just was a freaking crazy, crazy time for me. So here's Jackson all loaded up on this information and demanding to be allowed to confront this man who has now handcuffed himself to run off and elope with my wife in this already very toxic environment. So, I just separated basically state from church per se. This is between me and another man. It has nothing to do with the church. And, Marty and Greg kept telling me, we got to run this by the attorneys. We got to get clearance. Said, I don't care who you have to get this cleared by. It's going to happen.
Run what by the attorneys?
The fact that I was going to kill him. They were freaking out. Because they realized that what I was coming out of my mouth was a true statement. It wasn't just I was this upset and I'm going to kill the guy. No, I told them, I kept repeatedly telling them, if he was here, you would have a dead man on your hands. And I, as a person, Aaron, had resolved with that decision. I was comfortable with it. If he was there, I could not believe it about myself. And again, that was part of my wacky tobacco state of I now found myself in after JB tells me this. Anyways, I think people can understand the significance of that as a human being when you make such a decision. So yes, over the course of them not letting me go see Barrett and confront him and confront my wife, I had changed my mind. I'd realized that all that's going to do is now make me the bad person. So I thought, and at the time, because of my medical training and the emergency medical technician world, I'm very familiar with the structure of the body. So I had decided that I'm going to give him lifetime memories to walk around and limp with. So I changed. I shouldn't be laughing. But I changed my voice, what I'm going to do to Barrett and my right as a man because of this news you gave me to do. I told him I no longer have the interest in killing him, but I am going to physically hurt him, that he will forever walk around with the memory that every time he limps, this limp came about because he chose to seduce and steal my wife from me. So that was my solution to the problem. And that was what they felt relieved that at least I moved from murdering somebody to physically maiming them. And in the meantime, I'm screaming and yelling, you need to get me out to Happy Valley. I have the right to go confront this man. Took two solid, huh?
Were they going to run? Were they running that one by the lawyers?
I'm sure they were scrambling. I don't know. I was just Jackson, lonely out there, trapped out at the old Gilman area. And, my problem was, if I did, I could hop the fence anytime. It was a radio click away to move my wife out, and I would end up not finding her. So I'd just be chasing radio waves all day long, was trying to catch up to my wife. So I was defeated. No matter what I said, I still couldn't walk over and walk into that room and be there for my wife. Wow. So, yeah, anyways, it took 2 weeks. It was all arranged on a very quiet Sunday morning, when the whole base basically was still in bed and at rest and doing their Sunday CSP, the clean ship program, cleaning the rooms, doing their laundry, and nobody was on post. It was organized to take Jackson out. 3 people went out with me. I walk out there, and my wife and Barrett were set up in a double wide trailer, which was the RPF, the Rehabilitation Project Forces Space, a double wide trailer. It was empty of all its furniture. There was a male every 10 feet surrounding the place, and then there was 3 males inside because of no matter what I said, they anticipated physical violence. So
they let you go out there?
Fuck yeah, they did. I was demanding it. And there was no way they can get around convincing me that I did not need to go out and see and confront my wife and Barrett. So their only concern was I'm a loose cannon. They had to have a defense in play and protection in play so nothing gets seriously out of hand, because they knew I was serious.
You've never told me this part of the story. What the hell happened when you went out there?
Well, on that same day, I told him, I said, listen, I realize that if I do maim him, that just puts me again in the wrong and puts him in the right. So I just told him, I had realized at the time, my last tool in my bag is I can reassure him in his mind, as long as he's alive and he knows I know how to find people. That's what I confronted with him, told him. When I walked in that room, you could hear a pin drop 10 miles away. It was so silent. And the look on everybody's eyes, their eyes were just bugged out. And I'll never forget that moment. And then seeing Barrett and her sitting in chairs. Go ahead.
So this whole time they would keep you and your wife separated, but I'm just shocked that they wouldn't let you associate with your wife during this whole time. But they're like, but we'll let him go out and confront Barrett. That we'll let him do that. I just can't believe it. I just can't.
Well, it was because I put them in their place about how disturbing it was that from one man to another man would sit there and constantly watch another man's wife be seduced by another man. I eliminated the church from it. This is from me as a man to other men dealing with me. And so
you go out there and they have you meet with both of them at the same time?
Well, because I demanded it. I mean, it was my right. Yeah. But yes.
So, I thought, just to be honest, when you told me the story about the whole handcuff thing, I just thought it was sort of him on the spur of the moment doing something to someone he had a crush on. Hey, here's run down the road. But this was like a whole thing they had been creating for, like, this was a real thing.
Very real.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
God.
Yeah,
it's
it's like
being a weirdo.
Well, like I said, 2 months into my 12 months being there is when this thing started between them. And so they were already 8 to 10 months well involved with each other, so much so that they were going to go off and be married and build their own family.
Wow. By the way, for one of the 1,200 people watching right now, and you're in favor of Jackson insisting on enacting his righteous revenge, hit that like button. It's fast, it's easy, it's free. Hit that like button. Okay, so now hold on. So you go out there. You got Barrett. You got your wife. What did you say? What did you say to Barrett?
They were probably separated by 10 or 12 feet up against the wall, and it was the inside of an old double wide. And that typical old school 1970s wood paneling. You just don't forget those kind of things. White floor, and it was silent. And I just leaned into Barrett, put both my hands on either side of the armed chair that he was sitting in, and I stared into his face, and I said, "Hell, you little fucker."
What?
Yeah.
They let you get that close to him?
Yeah, well, he turned white. I found out later, he told me this himself, that he literally shit and pissed himself to, his body kept trying to shit when he had no shit to deliver type convulsion. I scared him so much that he literally pissed and shat himself. He had a briefcase with him, and I went through his briefcase. I had him empty out his pockets. I just started doing my whole security routine, digging into his personal life, using that to belittle and get at him as best I could. I mean, what this man right here in front of me took my wife, and she was sitting over there. And again, Aaron, I do have to say, these are two individuals that were in a very fucked up situation that they got themselves involved in their own fucked up situation on top of it. So it was a double whammy of psychotic oddity, you know?
The thing that makes this, from a Scientology perspective, just even crazier than it already sounds, is that this is all happening during a time when Barrett is supposed to be getting like sec checked every day or every other day or everything.
Yeah.
And this is happening for 8 months. So your position, and I guess I'm not clear whether you were guessing this or whether you knew this for a fact, that everyone else knew this was going on the entire time and intentionally hid it from you.
The very auditor that was sec checking my wife and me, she this is like the auditor come in, take Jackson in session, turn around later that afternoon and go out, do an auditing session on my wife, and she herself knew.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like she would come here unconsciously, and I would voice in my counseling that, God, I really miss my wife, and really, oh, Jackson, she's doing just fine, damn well knowing what's going on.
Oh my God.
Just like, yeah. What that did to my mind, you know, the undermining of that religious deep-seated belief that it's just like today's Catholic finding out that the man behind that screen in the confessional booth is running to the media after you meet with him, you know, but yet people go to that confessional booth knowing that they can expose their souls. Well, in Scientology, that's what sec checking auditing is all about. It never passes your mind that what you're telling would ever hit the outside world. So there's my auditor sitting there. Hey, Jackson, I know what you're saying. We just need to focus on your auditing. I know you love your wife, and one day, you know, when you guys leave, you'll get there. And then an hour later, she's out auditing my wife. So, you know, knowing exactly what's going on. Mother effer. Anyways.
This was the RTC sec checker?
Yeah. Her name's Gerda. And that isn't to say it was just the knowledge was limited to Gerda. Dave knew, Mike knew, Greg knew, Marty knew. Everybody fucking knew except for Jackson. In the meantime, to secure, because, you know, from RTC standpoint, you got to realize that now that this is going on, it gives Jackson every reason. It's like he's got nothing that's going to lead to him saying, I'm going to stay because I got nothing to go to, so I might as well stay. So they just supported it. They don't care about the emotions. It just becomes part of the tactics. And again, I knew that was part of the tactics. Wow. Isn't that just effed up? So, okay, so during my confrontation process with Barrett, the only thing I saw him was him turning white. He had very black, dark hair, so it was very obviously contrasting. And I turned around, I kicked a 6-foot fold-out table with my foot. I broke my toe, but I literally lifted it up and it flipped over with legs up. And it was kind of a weird, I stood there and go, did I just do that? And my foot's killing me. But I just turned around and... anyways, it was very traumatic to say the least. I didn't end up harming him. I obviously didn't end up killing him, but I had as an individual resolved that I was so upset and disturbed by the whole thing. So, I then went back to Old Gilman House. I was probably there no more than an hour. Cause I did go through his pockets. I also had him show me where he was sleeping, and I went through his bed. I turned his bed inside out, went through all his clothing, just do my security thing, just to instill in this guy's mind that forever, I told him clearly, I said, I have no control over whether you and my wife actually get together when we all leave, but just know this, Barrett, I will track you down, and you know I can track you down, and to this day, I know I could, and I would have done it, because even after the fact, I do remember when I lived in Glendale, identifying and locating, and driving up there and making sure I remember where his mom lived and where he would live and all that. And had these little mental plans of creating little toil disturbances in his life. They were crazy thoughts. Because,
but just so everyone knows, though, like, he left, your wife stayed.
No, my wife left. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. After that,
they didn't leave together, did they?
No. But it's not like Barrett instantly left my world because he was still in the way of me trying to recover my marriage in my wife's mind. So she still possessed, like, she had a locket of his hair, you know, and I don't
want that black magic shit.
Yeah. I don't want people to think that I think my wife anything other than just the purest love that I've ever felt in my entire life. Because I don't think one negative thing about her. I feel that she was just a genuine, loving, beautiful woman who lost a sense of security and love of her loved husband. And women naturally have a better life when they have the security of a genuine man who genuinely loves them. And when she felt that she lost that, someone else was thrown at her and offered that, and she ran with it. So,
that is the craziest shit I have ever heard. You didn't tell me all this. I didn't know what we were walking into here.
Well, you just saying that, you say that over all the shit you already heard so far. I take challenge of this is the craziest shit you ever heard, Aaron. But yes, this happened with me.
I had no idea.
And the absolute insaniest, whatever. I grew up in a cult like you, brother. I don't know what the right is. The most absolute insane, craziest time in my entire life. Up to and since that point.
So, do you have... First of all, I'm sorry. I had no idea you went through all that. I'm so sorry for.
I'm surprised I'm not sitting here bawling my fucking eyes out to you, Aaron.
I'm sorry I even walked you down this path. I did not know this is where we were going today.
Neither did I.
Do you know if your ex-wife is still in Scientology?
No. And happily so, Aaron. I waited 10 gracious years for that one phone call.
She called you?
Yeah. And you know what, Osa, fuck yourself if you're going to turn around and screw with my wife. Because, now that this egg's out of the basket and it's broken, believe me, go ahead and try. And I'm not, this ain't no threat. It's just going to prove how crazy screwed up you folks are. But you better not bring any misery to her established, beautiful, live life. So, I even went to Louisiana at the time, Aaron, to try to salvage my marriage as a last ditch effort, and did a 2-week co-audit. And literally at that time, this is back in 1997.
Okay.
Was the last time I have physically seen the most beautiful woman in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So. Wow. Yeah. So. But I have spoken with her.
Wow.
And, Aaron, it's really funny. And she has since remarried, has built her own beautiful family. She is a loving mother to children and the loving wife to another man who knows nothing about this. And I don't blame him. I don't blame them. I don't blame her. I don't blame the situation. It's significantly unfortunate that we were separated, not because of any reason between us. It was wholeheartedly because the church used my marriage as leverage to get me to stay or her to stay, or to her use it leverage against me. Wow. It's really hard for one person to battle a battalion of people. Wow. Set on not giving two flying fucks of the impact of their actions or decisions upon you. So I can tell you, I don't know how to deliver this other than, yeah, I did. I graciously waited 10 years because once I gave her my word from the day we were married, my mind never wandered whatsoever towards anybody else other than her. My heart, my mind, my statements, my decisions. And also while I was routing out, you're realizing your failures and the things you didn't do as a husband to her. And, here I was sitting out there at OGH yearning for the day that we can leave and I can finally exercise me to her that I didn't get to while we were on staff, and her as a wife to me and us building a family. And then having this situation land in my lap. And, so I had no reason to mentally detach myself from her. Even though we did get divorced, I said, if you want a divorce, you're going to pay for it because I have no interest. I was just in a position I couldn't handle her, what she was mentally came to understand about me and her drive to move away from me, for what the church filled her head with.
So did you say you guys were still legally married for 10 years?
No. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Early on, shortly after we left, when I went out to originally, literally Marty got me a plane ticket the last day when I had to get a floating needle out of Marty before I could officially leave. So he said, "Where are you going to go now?" And I said, "Marty," I said, "when I walk out that door, I got to find a bench to sleep on. I got nothing. I want my wife, but I got to figure out how to get my wife." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And he, whether he was playing dumb or not, he seemed genuine. I said, "Marty, I lost my wife. I got to go find a park bench to sleep on and figure life out. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I don't got nothing." So, and he goes, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I want my fucking wife," who was in Louisiana at the time. He says, "So hold on." So he walked out, and 20 minutes later, came back with a plane ticket to Louisiana. Which is where, because in my wife's final month, I pushed hard to give her the path out. I used my knowledge and the weight that I have as now the ex-security chief at base. I just pulled that card and made it miserable for the church. Get her out of here. Get her finished. I'm going to be your worst fucking nightmare type thing.
So she got out of there before you did, actually.
Yeah, like a month before me. As my effort to prove to her that I'm there for her, she said somehow she was still, I'll never forget sitting in that trailer out there that Yeager used to once sit in, but where I was trying to recapture that love with my wife, and she allowed me to braid her hair. The first time I'd ever braided a woman's hair, but
how about a man? You braided a man's hair though?
Oh boy. Funny, but not funny, but motherfucking funny. Okay. That was funny, dude.
All right. Sorry. I had to. Sorry.
But between a husband and wife, when you braid your wife's hair, that's just a uniquely, bonding moment, So I had thought it was starting to go away during my effort through her final month there, but it just, yeah. Anyway, so I forget where I was specifically last, but I was trying to salvage my marriage, went to Louisiana. I started tripping across little elements that she still had all these little notes that Barrett would write her, and he had my wedding ring somehow and given it to her and the locket of hair. And I confronted her on it, and she was really upset by the fact that I confronted her on it. And that kind of acknowledged for her that I was still truly a threat to her, because how did I discover all these things? Because I went through her shit and I found them. And I don't blame her for that, because she still perceived me as a threat, that threat that the church posed in her mind of what I now became to her, which was nothing but a genuine threat to her survival and livelihood. So she literally physically disowned me, one to the face and a couple to the happy sack. And the in-laws did not like this to the, I'm just telling it as it is, Aaron. I don't know what to say. This is not the woman that I knew, and I knew it was only happening because of the situation that she was forced to be in. And I was trying all I could to get my marriage back, Aaron. And it was just, I even had a job lined up with the Baton Rouge Fire Department. It just was incredible how through thick and thin I could still manage to survive strongly. And everywhere I went, it was all about being the man to build an environment, safe and productive environment for my family, you know? So while I was trying to recover my marriage, I was like, I need to get a job and have the ability to support my wife and my kids. So I had met with the Baton Rouge fire chief, presented him what I had. He was like, I want to take you on board now. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But then 2 days later, it was like, I'm not going to sign your liability formula. And because the application of the quote unquote conditions, and then that incident that happened between us when I confronted her, you know, the people's house we were staying in, they did not like it. They don't want violence in the house. And I was given a Greyhound bus ticket out.
Oh, you were staying with her and her parents?
Yeah. Yeah. She was in one section of the house. I was in the other. We were still freshly out of the Sea Org, and yeah, there's a whole story behind that. But, again, I don't want to give the impression that, she's anything short of magnificent, because, anyways, I did not plan to go down this path. I don't, it's just motherfucking terrible.
Yeah.
I sit here before you today without that in my life. And ever since the last day I got to see her, I've been forced to live a life without sharing a life with that other life, if that makes sense.
I thought I'd heard some of the craziest ways Scientology destroys families, but I think now I've heard it.
Well,
I never heard this story, Jackson. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Aaron. I do want to highlight, too, that, you know, my story's not any more significant and heartbroken and terrible and tragic compared to some other people. My story is just my story, brother. And, you know, every effort behind all these stories just shows how uniquely individualized the custom program is for each individual to pan out into the story that they became, such as Mark and Claire's, how and why Mark ended up on his bike and being chased by Danny. And, you know, I could tell you so much behind that, how Danny arrived at being the person. I could have told you, you know, Muriel going down there and the whole 9 yards. You know, it's not like that was the first time that happened either. That happened with 2 other people that I can tell you about. And, you know, every story is unique simply because of the vicious underbelly of not only Scientology, the Sea organization, but particularly David Miscavige. Mm-hmm. I mean, your underground message to your channel, Aaron, is that dude needs to be held accountable. That is really what this is all about. I'm not after people's beliefs, trying to change their belief. It is truly there is a man who's in charge of an environment we were all once part of that puts great effort into fucking it all up. Anyway, so yeah. Holy bejesus, I did not. I almost feel in a sense I kind of violated my own integrity about just the preciousness behind that true victim of, you know, and I guess for all intents and purposes, I'll tell you this, Aaron, I also did get a phone call. I don't know. This is, yeah, I mean, I got another phone call from her one day, and I'll just say this, that, I mean, she realizes the life she's missing out on. I'll tell you that. And to hear that from her was just magical. And that's no intent to undo what she has now successfully built, something beautiful. That's just simply between her and I. But her effort to, I mean, I just recognized that she had finally realized what I always hoped for, you know? That magical knock at the door. I don't know. This isn't to say that, you know, there's other fish in the sea. I had never ever had planned to go hunting for any other fish in the sea type of thing, you know, and you know, there's a lot of beauty that can be delivered. It just hasn't arrived yet, per se, you know. I don't know. What do you say? What do you say when you're forced to? There was nothing between us. Never. There wasn't one fucking reason for us to end up getting divorced.
You mean nothing bad between you?
Nothing. Mm-hmm. It's not nothing like she didn't like the cut of my jib. I farted in bed, whatever. There was nothing. Nothing. In fact, it was the complete opposite.
You didn't do that, or she didn't have a problem with it?
I'm just saying, whatever makes up relationship issues that bring about that decision, there wasn't one thing between us. I can never remember a time we even fought or disagreed on anything. And even if we did raise our voice with each other about something, it was obvious to us that we just simply misunderstood, and we understood it and moved on. Wow. But we were always, this woman when I used to run calls in the middle of the night and my pager would go off and be a working structure fire, she wanted to come with me. So she would literally sit there on the fireground watching me fight this fire and then end up falling asleep in the car. And 2 or 3 hours later, I'd come up and find her cuddled up in the car, and I would just embrace her in that moment of, God, this woman just, gave up her precious Sea Org sleeping hours to come hang with me of something that I love doing. And that just, it just meant so much to me. Just all these little moments. So, yeah. There you have it, Aaron.
I'm sorry you lost all that. She was incredibly manipulated by a bunch of evil
Incredibly.
people.
Absolutely motherfucking incredibly.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, is the most beautiful woman that could exist on this earth. That's just where my heart was at the time. So, so many people can throw, well, that ain't true. Look at this, look at that, look what I got. Everybody has their own, you just know the value of what you've got. And that's what I knew I had.
Wow. Well, I think many people will never look at the never-ending story the same way again.
Well, in Barrett's defense, I don't know how I arrived at this, but I got a letter in the mail one day from Ken Hoden, by the way. Ken Hoden, who was the base port captain and who was the final one that I was dealing with when I left. But he was kind of like the happy medium of the go-between the base and those who left. And it was a handwritten apology letter from Barrett.
Really?
Yeah, I could probably pull it out here somewhere, but...
Holy shit.
He apologized for what he had done.
Did he send you a lock of his hair?
Funny, but not funny, but fucking funny.
we can make a voodoo doll and burn it.
I don't wish that ill on him because he was caught up in a very, very wicked thing. I really, I don't know. Short of me having wandered in his neighborhood under the cover of night back at one time, I have never, I've never made an effort. I guess I've tried Googling him just to see what his disposition was after all these years. I can tell you this, Barrett and my wife are not together. That warms my heart.
Do you know if he or his mom are still in Scientology?
Couldn't tell you, except for what our brother Mitch exposed, which I think is great for Barrett because, that kind of fits right in with what I know about him is he was done with his acting. But yeah, it's kind of like Randy Johnson, that pitcher from Seattle. He is now a professional photographer at sporting events. Well, same thing with Barrett. He gave up acting and now he follows a path of passion. And if he's a photographer, that makes total freaking sense to me about Barrett. He was that kind of guy.
Wow.
So I can only hope he's had success and happiness.
Well, you are a gracious man, Jackson.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Aaron. I'm just me. I'm just me. I'm just me, man. That's my response. I don't know what else to say because it's just fucked up. So, did we meet the mission statement of this intended live feed?
I thought we were just talking about Barrett trying to escape from the base, but we. I think the message we ended up. I think telling this part of your story is incredibly important for people to hear. I mean, that's my personal feeling. I mean, look, people know Scientology destroys families, but I mean, this is some really sick, insidious stuff. And this is what happens at the international base, where Scientology is supposed to be the most pure. Everyone's supposed to be the most ethical, pro-survival, dynamics in alignment, go LRH. And this is, you know, you want to know, what does a group really believe? How does a group really behave? You need to go to where you need to go to the top. Like real Scientology, it's what's practiced at the highest levels.
Yeah.
Not, you know what I'm saying? That's how I look
totally.
at it. Yeah.
You know, Aaron, and I, you know, of course now the 1001 little, when I was, I just, you know, I was talking to Mitch yesterday and you know, cause I'll never forget the time standing back in the shadows, sitting on the set, watching Mitch do what he does. But I used to just sit there and enamored at my wife doing her makeup thing. And I just loved watching the cut of her face, you know, the outline. You just don't forget shit like that, you know? And then, it's just a wow. And it's just, but it's so, you know, and that's stuff that I miss the most, I guess. And wow. Yeah, because I mean, what brought me down this was just remembering the time of seeing their Mitch under the set lights and his ponytail and his glasses and him giving directions and watching his script girl take notes and the gaffers do what Mitch was saying. You know, just seeing all that at play, and then seeing my wife under his command, you know, and her professional approach to that environment that Mitch was creating, you know, meant a lot to me. And I mean, she had even gone through professional makeup school. She spent 6 months this place down in Glendale getting professionally trained and certified as a makeup artist. And she was fucking good at it. And, you know, I mean, another comedic thing, Aaron, during the 365 days of my attempt to leave, initially, because I absolutely refused. I mean, you didn't hear the worst part of my wife and I leaving, and that was the day we actually hopped the fence and ran back out to our berthing to leave under our own commands. Is we were standing there outside of this off-base berthing out by Mount San Antonio College, and I told her, I said, honey, this shit show that's going to be borne down upon you, is it going to be a complete shit show? You're going to have no idea, so just please understand and follow my lead. But I kept telling her, I said, what the most important thing is, we cannot allow ourselves to get separated. And our arms were interlocked. Our hands were we kind of wrapped our arms around each other and then locked our hands together, standing there, and they were pulling her that way and pulling me this way to get us separated. And I just remember it's like, fuck, this is hurting me. This hurts. And I thought, if it's hurting me, it's got to be hurting her more. So I relaxed my grip. It was like
physically pulling you two apart.
Physically pulling us apart. And, you know, I like utilizing these points of concept. It was kind of like in Titanic, when you see Jack float down, he falls off the thing and you see him float down deeper into the water. Anyways, I'm just trying to use a conceptual what it was like for me at the time. I just felt my breath be pulled from me when that moment happened. And then now it became, how do I get that back? And getting their promise, it'll just be 48 hours, Jackson. She'll be back here. You better fucking, you know. And then the battle was every day they were telling me, just one more day, one more week. Anyways, the comedy of that I was going to say, because of her, she was the only one that ever cut my hair. So in protest, I grew my hair out down to the middle of my back. I had a full fucking beard. And they kept telling me, cut your hair. And I said, get my wife here. Yeah. You need to cut your hair. No, you need to get me my wife. She's the only one that touches my hair. So that was our first meeting after our first. I don't know. How long does it take to grow your hair out down the middle of your back? From your neckline down the middle of your back. It was that long.
It's got to be.
Before I got to see my wife for the first time.
That's got to be a year, right?
Well, I was only routing out for a year. So somehow, maybe it wasn't down to my back it appeared, but it certainly past my shoulders. It was fucking long, Aaron. And I had a full beard.
Wow.
Just in simple protest. And then finally she was like, I remember her walking in the room and go, boy, look at you. And she has a Southern accent. And it was just like,
oh, because she's from Louisiana.
Yes. So she cut my hair, and finally I got my hair cut.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, Jackson, I don't want to make this any harder for you by continuing on.
Oh, it's all good.
I feel bad already, man.
No, don't feel bad, Aaron. This is just the nature of the bullshit.
Well, let me just say thank you for sharing that part of your story with me and all the viewers. And I hope it helps people to really understand how evil and insidious and destructive this cult is.
Truly evil.
Doesn't care about anything other than money and power.
And their own self-preservation. I mean, Dave runs around all these loose cannons on a rough seas.
Yeah.
And hiding people so his crimes don't get exposed.
All right, guys. Last thing I'll do. I encourage you all to go over and subscribe to Jackson's channel at Gary Jackson Moorhead. And
I didn't even believe the comment section was here lit up on my thing.
Oh, you didn't see that? I should have showed you beforehand.
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the benefits of joining on the from the back end like you did this time, is you can see all the live comments and everything. Like when I throw up the comments on the screen, that's where I'm selecting them from. And yeah, I'll show you more about that afterwards.
Jackson, are you single? Asking on behalf of all the single ladies within a 100-mile radius.
I put that up on the screen earlier.
Oh, I did. You did.
Yeah. So if you want to ask Jackson out for a date,
no. I don't want this to turn into that, Aaron. Oh my God.
Go subscribe to his channel. And
shit. Wait a minute. Back the fuck up, because this is not not that I don't know what to say to that. It's just that was not the intention of this whole thing whatsoever. But
yeah. He'll braid your hair if you're a woman or a man. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll take some whipped cream with that hot chocolate, huh?
All right. How about we end it there, Jackson? You good with that?
Yeah, fine. That was good comedy.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end. And
peace out, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
If you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right